The cold Montana wind cut through Maya Chone's worn jacket as she pressed herself deeper into the shadows behind the gas station dumpster. Her heart hammered against her ribs, not from the October chill, but from what she had just witnessed in the forest clearing beyond Millfield's outskirts. She shouldn't have been there. Nobody should have been there at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Especially not the girl everyone called Ghost Maya, the one who moved through Millfield High's hallways like smoke, unnoticed and unwanted. But Maya had seen them, the creatures that weren't quite human, with eyes that glowed amber in the moonlight and movements too fluid, too predatory to belong to any person she'd ever known. And standing at their center, commanding their attention with a presence that made the very air vibrate with power, was someone she recognized. Ethan Blackwood. The same Ethan Blackwood who had transferred to their tiny mountain town 3 months ago. The same impossibly handsome senior who made every girl in school stop mid-conversation when he walked by. The same mysterious newcomer who had somehow managed to acknowledge Maya's existence with a single, piercing glance that first day in the cafeteria, a moment she'd replayed in her mind countless times since. But the Ethan she'd watched transform under the full moon wasn't the quiet, reserved boy from chemistry class. This Ethan moved with lethal grace, his human facade stripped away to reveal something ancient and terrifying. When he'd shifted, bones cracking, muscles expanding, skin giving way to silver-black fur, Maya had bitten down so hard on her knuckle to keep from screaming that she could still taste blood. Now, 20 minutes later, she sat behind the pump and go on Route 87, trying to convince herself she'd imagined it all. That stress from her mother's latest drinking binge and her father's continued absence had finally snapped something in her brain. "You can come out now, Maya." The voice froze her blood. Deep, familiar, but carrying an undertone of authority that made every instinct scream at her to run. She squeezed her eyes shut, pressing her back harder against the cold metal dumpster. "I know you're there. I can hear your heartbeat from here." Maya's eyes snapped open. Ethan stood 15 feet away, fully human again, but somehow more intimidating than when he'd been in that other form. His usually tousled dark hair was damp with sweat, his clothes torn, but his piercing blue eyes completely focused on her hiding spot. I don't know what you're talking about," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind. Ethan's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile if it hadn't looked so dangerous. "Maya Chun, 17 years old, lives at 1247 Pine Street with her mother, Suzanne, who works double shifts at the diner to avoid dealing with her own demons. Your father left when you were 12, and you've been invisible ever since, by choice." Each word hit her like a physical blow. How could he possibly know so much about her life when they'd never even spoken? "You've been watching me," she said, finding her voice in a spark of anger. "You're some kind of stalker." "No." Ethan stepped closer, and Maya caught something wild in his scent pine trees and leather, and something uniquely him that made her pulse quicken for entirely different reasons than fear. "I've been protecting you." "From what?" "From them. From the others who had been hunting you since the day you were born." His eyes never left hers as he crouched down, bringing himself to her eye level. "Maya, you're not who you think you are. And tonight, everything changes." Maya scrambled to her feet, her back hitting the dumpster with a metallic clang. "You're insane. I'm nobody. I'm invisible, remember? Just the weird Asian kid whose mom drinks too much and whose dad couldn't handle small-town life. You're the daughter of Eleanor Blackthorne," Ethan said quietly, and Maya's world tilted sideways. She'd never heard that name before, but something deep in her chest recognized it, like a tuning fork struck in perfect pitch. Her hands began to tremble. That's not. My mother is Susan Chun. She was born in Sacramento. She met my dad at UC Davis, and they moved here when I was 5 because land was cheap, and Susan Chun adopted you when you were 3 days old. Ethan interrupted gently. Eleanor Blackthorne died, bringing you into this world, and with her last breath, she bound her power to you. Power that's been dormant for 17 years. But awakened tonight when the autumn moon reached its peak. Maya shook her head violently. Stop, just stop talking. But even as she denied his words, she felt something stirring inside her, something that had been growing stronger over the past few weeks. The strange dreams where she ran through forests on 4 legs. The way she could sometimes hear conversations from impossible distances. The fact that she'd been able to navigate the dark woods tonight without stumbling once. The pack you saw tonight. They're not the only ones looking for you, Ethan continued, his voice taking on an urgent edge. There are other darker things that want to use your power for their own purposes. The only reason you've been safe is because your adopted mother unknowingly moved you to neutral territory. And because I've been here, why? Maya's voice cracked. Why would you protect someone you don't even know? Ethan's expression shifted, becoming something raw and vulnerable that didn't fit with the dangerous predator she'd witnessed in the clearing. Because you're my mate, Mia. My destined partner. And I've been searching for you for over a century. The words hit her like cold water. That's impossible. You're 17, I'm 143 years old. I've been 17 for longer than your entire bloodline has existed. His eyes held hers steadily. I'm the Alpha of the Silver Moon Pack, and I have been waiting for you since the night I first shifted under a full moon in 1881. Maya's legs gave out. She slid down the dumpster until she was sitting on the cold asphalt, staring up at this impossible boy who claimed to be her mate, her protector, her destiny. This is a dream, she whispered, or a breakdown. I'm having a complete mental breakdown in a gas station parking lot. Ethan moved closer, his expression softening. Give me your hand. What? Trust me. Just once. Against every rational thought in her head, Maya extended her trembling hand. The moment Ethan's fingers touched hers, electricity shot through her entire body. But more than that, she saw flashes of images, memories that weren't hers. A woman with Maya's dark hair and golden eyes, standing in a moonlit clearing with power crackling around her like visible lightning. The same woman, pale and exhausted, pressing a newborn baby into the arms of a crying stranger and whispering words in a language Maya somehow understood. Keep her safe until her true nature awakens. Ethan, but younger looking somehow, standing over the woman's grave with tears streaming down his face, swearing an oath to protect her child until the day they could be reunited. Decades of searching, moving from town to town, following whispers and legends, always one step behind. And finally, 3 months ago, walking into Millfield High School and catching a scent that stopped his heart, the scent of home, of destiny, of the girl he'd been searching for his entire immortal life. Maya jerked her hand back, gasping, "How did you... ... What was that?" "The mate bond," Ethan said simply. "It allows us to share memories, emotions, thoughts. It's how I knew you were in the woods tonight, even before I caught your scent." She stared at him. This impossible boy, who claimed to be over a century old, who had shown her visions that felt more real than her own memories. "I can't. This is too much, I know." Ethan's voice was gentle now, the dangerous edge replaced by something infinitely patient. "I know it's overwhelming. But, Maya, whether you accept it or not, there are things hunting you now. Your power awakens tonight. Every supernatural creature, within 100 miles, felt it. They're coming. As if summoned by his words, a howl echoed from the distant mountains, long, mournful, and definitely not from any ordinary wolf. Maya's blood chilled. What was that? The Blackwood Pack, Ethan said grimly, rising to his feet and scanning the tree line. My cousin's pack. They've been my enemies for decades, and they want your power for themselves. Another howl answered the first, closer this time. Then another. We need to go, Ethan said, extending his hand to her again. Now. Maya looked at his outstretched hand, then at the dark forest beyond the gas station, where those inhuman sounds were growing louder. Every rational part of her mind screamed that this was insane, that she should run home to her tiny bedroom and pretend none of this had happened. But deep in her chest, something wild and powerful was stirring to life, something that recognized the truth in Ethan's impossible words. And as the first pair of glowing eyes appeared at the forest's edge, Maya made the choice that would change everything. She took his hand. The moment Maya's fingers intertwined with Ethan's, the world exploded into chaos. 3 massive wolves burst from the tree line, their eyes gleaming like molten gold in the fluorescent glow of the gas station lights. Each one was easily twice the size of any natural wolf Maya had ever seen in nature documentaries, their muscles rippling beneath coats that seemed to absorb the darkness around them. Run, Ethan commanded, his grip on Maya's hand tightening as he pulled her toward his motorcycle, parked at the edge of the lot. But even as they moved, she could feel the change beginning in him, his body temperature spiking, his breathing becoming deeper, more controlled. Maya stumbled, her legs feeling like jelly beneath her. I can't. I'm not fast enough. ... Ethan spun to face her, his blue eyes now flecked with silver that seemed to pulse with inner light. Maya, listen to me. Feel what's happening inside you. Stop fighting it. The largest wolf, a massive black creature with scars crisscrossing its muzzle, let out a bone-chilling snarl as it padded closer. When it spoke, its voice was a rumbling growl that somehow formed words. Well, little Ethan found himself a mate. The wolf's lips pulled back, revealing teeth like ivory daggers. And not just any mate. The Blackthorn heir, Marcus. Ethan's voice carried centuries of hatred as he positioned himself between Maya and the approaching pack. Still following orders from dead alphas, I see. The scarred wolf. Marcus laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Our grandfather's vision never died, cousin. The Blackthorn bloodline belongs to us. It always has. Maya pressed herself against Ethan's back, feeling the tremor of power that ran through his frame. What are they talking about? What vision? Tell her, Ethan, Marcus taunted, his golden eyes fixed on Maya with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Tell her how Journey's power was supposed to unite our packs, how Eleanor was promised to our family before she chose your father instead. Eleanor chose love over politics. Ethan snarled, and she died for it. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Her mother, her real mother, had been murdered. What happened to her? She was assassinated, Ethan said quietly, never taking his eyes off the circling wolves. 3 days after you were born. My father died protecting her, but he was too late. One of the other wolves, a grey female with intelligent amber eyes, padded closer. Such a romantic version of the story. But he's leaving out the best part, little girl. He's leaving out why Eleanor really died. Maya felt something cold settle in her stomach. Why? Because she tried to break the bloodline binding, the female wolf continued, her voice silky with malice. She tried to ensure her daughter would never inherit the Blackthorn power. But magic has its own rules, doesn't it? Power always finds a way. Maya's hands began to tremble, but not from fear, from something else. Something that felt like electricity building in her veins. What binding? Marcus took another step forward, and Maya caught his scent: wet earth, old blood, and something that made every instinct scream danger. Every generation of Blackthorn women has been bound to serve the strongest pack. Your great-grandmother serves the Shadowrunners. Your grandmother served the Mountain Claws. Your mother was meant to serve us, but she fell in love with a Silver Moon Alpha instead, the gray female added with disdain. She chose weakness over strength. My father wasn't weak, Ethan growled, and Maya felt the air around them begin to vibrate with barely contained power. He was the strongest alpha in 3 states. Strong enough to get himself killed, protecting a woman who was never meant to be his, Marcus replied. But don't worry, cousin. We'll take better care of his legacy. The third wolves, smaller than the others, but moving with deadly grace, had been silently circling them. Now it spoke for the first time, its voice younger, but no less threatening. The girl smells... different. Not just Blackthorn, something else. Maya felt Ethan's entire body go rigid. What did you say? You didn't know? Marcus threw back his massive head and howled with laughter. Oh, this is Rich, the great tracker, Alpha, and he can't even identify his own mate's bloodline. She's mixed, the grey female said, her nose twitching as she scented the air. Blackthorn and something older, something we haven't smelled in decades. Maya's head was spinning. Mixed with what? But before anyone could answer, she felt it, a surge of power so intense it nearly dropped her to her knees. The parking lot lights began to flicker, and the air itself seemed to thicken around them. Impossible, the younger wolf whispered, backing away. She's not just awakening, she's evolving, Marcus finished. But for the first time, there was uncertainty in his voice. The legends were true. Maya looked down at her hands and gasped. Her skin was glowing with a soft silver light that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. When she looked up, she could see everything with perfect clarity. Every detail of the wolves' faces, every shadow between the trees, every star in the sky above. Maya, Ethan said urgently, we need to go, now. But Maya wasn't listening. The power coursing through her veins felt incredible, intoxicating. For 17 years she'd felt invisible, powerless, forgotten. Now she felt like she could move mountains. We want the Blackthorn power, she heard herself say, her voice carrying an authority she'd never possessed before. Come and take it. The words seemed to hang in the air, charged with energy that made the very ground beneath their feet tremble. The 3 wolves exchanged glances, and Maya caught something she hadn't expected to see in their golden eyes. Fear. Maya, stop, Ethan warned. But she was already moving, stepping away from his protective stance to face the pack head-on. You killed my mother, she said, and with each word, the silver light around her grew brighter. You've been hunting me my entire life. You want to use me like some kind of weapon. Marcus's ears flattened against his skull. Girl, you don't understand what you're dealing with. That power isn't meant for someone like you, someone like me. Maya's voice rose, and the parking lot lights exploded in a shower of sparks. You mean someone who wasn't raised to be your property? The grey female began backing toward the tree line. Marcus, we should go. She's not ready to be controlled yet. No, Marcus snarled, but Maya could see the conflict in his stance. We came for her, and we're not leaving empty-handed. That's when Maya felt it, another presence, older and more powerful than anything she'd encountered tonight, approaching fast through the darkness. Ethan felt it too. His head snapped toward the forest, and Maya heard him whisper something that sounded like a prayer. Elena. A figure emerged from the shadows between the trees, a woman who appeared to be in her 40s, with silver-streaked black hair and eyes that glowed with the same inner light Maya had seen in Ethan's. She moved with fluid grace, and Maya realized with a start that this woman wasn't entirely human either. "Marcus," the woman said calmly, and her voice carried such authority that all three wolves immediately lowered themselves in submission. "You're trespassing, Elena," Marcus replied, but his earlier aggression had vanished. "We didn't know you'd returned to this territory, obviously." Elena's gaze swept over the scene, the broken lights, the trembling ground, Maya still glowing with silver fire, and Maya saw something like satisfaction flash across her features. "The girl is under Silver Moon protection. You have no claim here. She's Blackthorn," the grey female protested weakly. "The binding was broken the night Eleanor died," Elena interrupted smoothly. "And he claimed your pack had died with her." Maya felt the power in her veins begin to ebb as confusion took its place. "Who are you?" Elena turned to her with a smile that was both kind and somehow predatory. "I'm Ethan's mother, dear, and your new pack mother, if you'll have us." The words should have been comforting, but something in Elena's tone made Maya's newly awakened instincts prick with warning. Before she could process the feeling further, Marcus let out a frustrated growl. "This isn't over," he warned. "The council will hear about this, about her." "I'm counting on it," Elena replied pleasantly. "Now run along. You're disturbing the peace." The three wolves melted back into the darkness, but not before Marcus fixed Maya with a look that promised this was far from finished. As their footsteps faded into the forest, Elena approached Maya with measured steps. "My dear, you've had quite a night. Why don't you come home with us? We have so much to discuss." Maya looked between Elena and Ethan, feeling suddenly exhausted as the adrenaline faded from her system. The silver light around her skin flickered and went out, leaving her feeling strangely empty. "I don't understand any of this," she whispered. "I just want to go home." "I know," Elena said gently, "but your old life ended tonight, Maya. The question now is, what kind of life do you want to build to replace it?" As if summoned by her words, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. With shaking hands, she pulled it from her pocket and read the words that made her blood turn to ice. "Your mother's been in an accident. Come to Millfield General immediately. Room 314, Doctor." Harrison Maya stared at the screen, feeling the last pieces of her ordinary world crumble away. When she looked up, both Ethan and Elena were watching her with expressions she couldn't quite read. "They took her," Maya said quietly, understanding flooding through her. "To get to me." Elena's smile never wavered, but something dangerous flickered in her eyes. "Then I suppose we'll have to get her back, won't we?" And as they climbed onto Ethan's motorcycle, Maya realized with crystalline clarity that her life as the Invisible Girl was truly over. Whatever came next would be written in power, blood, and choices she wasn't sure she was ready to make. But ready or not, the game had begun. The motorcycle roared through Millfield's empty streets. Maya's arms wrapped tightly around Ethan's waist as they followed Elena's silver sedan toward the hospital. The wind whipped through Maya's hair, but she barely felt the cold. Her entire focus was on the growing dread in her chest and, questions that multiplied with every passing streetlight. Why hadn't she sensed anything was wrong with her adoptive mother? If she truly had these supernatural abilities, shouldn't she have known Susan was in danger? "Stop blaming yourself," Ethan called over the engine noise, somehow sensing her thoughts. "The mate bond works both ways, remember? I can feel your guilt from here." Maya pressed her forehead against his back, breathing in his scent of pine and leather that somehow calmed the storm in her mind. How did they even know about Suzanne? She's not supernatural. She's just ... normal. In our world, there's no such thing as normal. Ethan replied as they pulled into the hospital parking lot. Everyone is connected to everyone else, one way or another. Elena was already waiting for them at the emergency room entrance. her expression unreadable in the harsh fluorescent lighting. Up close, Maya could see the family resemblance between mother and son, the same piercing blue eyes, the same aristocratic bone structure, the same aura of contained power. "Room 314, Maya said as they approached. "That's what the text said." "Third floor," Elena confirmed. But there was something in her voice that made Maya's newly awakened instincts prickle with unease. "Maya, before we go up there are things you need to understand about how our world works." "Our world?" "The supernatural community," Elena Coriphone, guiding them toward the elevators. "We have our own rules, our own politics, our own way of handling ... situations." The elevator doors closed around them. There was a soft ding, and Maya felt trapped in the small space with these two impossibly beautiful, impossibly dangerous people who claimed to be her destiny. "What kind of situations?" Maya asked. Elena and Ethan exchanged a look, one of those wordless communications that spoke of decades of shared history. "The kind where humans get caught in the crossfire," Elena said finally. Maya's stomach clenched. "Is she?" "Alive," Ethan said quickly. "I would have smelled death on the air if she weren't." The elevator opened on the third floor, revealing a corridor that was surprisingly empty for a hospital at night. Their footsteps echoed on the linoleum as they made their way toward room 314, passing darkened rooms and vacant nursing stations. "Where is everyone?" Maya whispered. "Sleeping," Elena replied smoothly. "I may have influenced the night staff to take an extended break." Maya stopped walking. "Influenced how?" "Compulsion," Ethan explained reluctantly. "It's a basic ability among our kind. We can encourage humans to make certain choices." "You mean mind control?" "I prefer gentle persuasion," Elena said with a slight smile. "And before you get too self-righteous about it, remember that it's protecting your adoptive mother's privacy right now." Maya wanted to argue, but they had reached room 314. Through the partially opened door, she could see Susan Chun lying motionless in the hospital bed, her face pale and drawn, connected to various monitors that beeped softly in the darkness. Maya rushed to her bedside, taking Susan's cold hand in hers. "Mum? Mum, can you hear me?" Susan's eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly on Maya's face. "Maya? Oh, sweetheart, you came." "Of course I came." "What happened?" "The tech said you were in an accident. ... I was driving home from my shift at the diner," Susan said weakly. "There was this dog in the road. At least, I thought it was a dog. It was huge, with these glowing eyes. I swerved to avoid it and hit a tree." Maya felt her blood turn to ice. Behind her, she heard Elena let out a soft sound that might have been satisfaction. Did it hurt you?" Mia asked. Susan's grip on her hand tightened. "No, baby. But afterwards, when I was trapped in the car, it came up to the window, and it spoke to me." Maya's heart stopped. "What did it say?" "It said to tell you that your real family is waiting for you." Susan's eyes were wide with confusion and fear. "Maya, what did it mean? What real family?" Maya glanced back at Elena and Ethan, both of whom were watching the exchange with careful neutrality. "I don't know, Mum. You're my real family." But even as she said the words, Maya could feel the lie in them. Over the past hour, she'd learned more about her true nature than in 17 years of living with Susan. And while she loved the woman who had raised her, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward Ethan, toward Elena, toward a world where she finally belonged. "The doctors want to keep me overnight for observation," Susan continued. "But Maya, I need you to be careful. There's something strange happening in this town, something dangerous." "I know," Maya said softly. "I'll be careful, I promise." Susan's eyes began to drift closed again. "Good girl," Always my good girl, ... Double quotes. As Susan fell back into drug-induced sleep, Maya became aware of a new presence in the room. She turned to find a tall, distinguished man in a doctor's coat watching them from the doorway. His hair was silver, his features sharp and intelligent, and his eyes were the same golden amber she'd seen in the wolves. "Dr. Harrison, I presume?" Elena said pleasantly, but Maya caught the edge of steel in her voice. "Elena Blackwood," the man replied with a slight bow of his head. "It's been many years." "Not long enough," Elena replied. "I thought we had an understanding about neutral territory." Dr. Harrison stepped into the room, and Maya noticed how both Elena and Ethan tensed, ready for violence. Circumstances have changed. The girl's awakening was more dramatic than we anticipated. "Maya," Ethan said quietly. "Step away from the bed." But Maya was frozen, staring at the man who claimed to be a doctor, but moved with the same predatory grace she'd seen in the wolves. "You're one of them. One of the ones who've been hunting me." "Not hunting," Dr. Harrison corrected. "Protecting. Your awakening tonight sent ripples through the supernatural world. Every pack, every coven, every ancient bloodline felt it. Do you have any idea how many enemies you've made simply by existing?" "Sword. She's under Silver Moon protection," Elena said firmly. "Dr. Harrison's laughter sound that made Maya's skin crawl. "Is she? Because, from what I observed tonight, young Ethan can barely control his own mate bond, let alone protect her from the forces that are coming." Maya felt something stir in her chest, not power this time, but anger. "Stop talking about me like I'm not here." "Of course," Dr. Harrison said, turning his golden gaze on her. "You're absolutely right. This concerns you most of all. Tell me, Maya, what do you know about the convergence?" "The what?" "Every few centuries, the supernatural world reaches a tipping point," Dr. Harrison explained, moving closer despite the warning growls from both Elena and Ethan. "Old powers die, new ones rise, and the balance shifts. We are approaching such a time now, and you, my dear, are the catalyst." Maya shook her head. "I don't understand. I just found out about all of this tonight. How can I be a catalyst for anything?" "Because you're not just Blackthorn," Dr. Harrison replied. "Your father, your real father, wasn't Ethan's father." "Elena, didn't you tell her?" The silence that followed was deafening. Maya looked at Elena, then at Ethan, seeing confirmation in their stricken faces. "What is he talking about?" Maya demanded. Elena's composure finally cracked. "Maya, we were going to tell you when you were ready. ... Tell me what." "Your father wasn't just an alpha," Elena said quietly. "He was the last of the Shadow Kings, a bloodline that was thought to be extinct. When he mated with Eleanor, he combined two of the most powerful supernatural lineages in existence." Maya felt the room spin around her. "So what does that make me?" Dr. Harrison smiled, and Maya saw fangs glint in the fluorescent lighting. "The most powerful hybrid born in over 1,000 years, and the key to preventing a war that would destroy both the supernatural and human worlds. Or starting one," Elena added grimly. Before Maya could process this new revelation, the lights in the hospital began to flicker. Outside she could hear howls, not just one pack, but many, converging on their location. "They're coming," Ethan said, moving to the window. "Multiple packs. And something else ... Something colder." Dr. Harrison straightened, his human facade dropping to reveal something ancient and predatory. "The council has arrived. They've come to claim her." Maya looked at Susan's peaceful face, then at the three supernatural beings who were arguing about her fate like she was a prize to be won. The anger in her chest grew stronger, fed by 17 years of feeling powerless, invisible, forgotten. "No," she said quietly. All three of them stopped talking and turned to her. "No," Maya repeated, louder this time. "I'm not going anywhere with any of you. I'm not anyone's mate or weapon or catalyst. I'm just Maya, and I want all of you to leave me alone." The lights in the room began to pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat. The monitors connected to Susan started beeping frantically, and Maya realized with growing horror that her power was affecting everything electronic in the vicinity. "Maya, you need to calm down," Elena said urgently. "You don't have full control yet." "I don't want control," Maya snarled, feeling something wild and dangerous unfurling inside her. "I want everyone to just leave me alone." The explosion of power that erupted from her was unlike anything she'd felt before. Every light in the hospital went out, every electronic device went silent, and for a moment, Maya felt like she could level the entire building with a thought. When the emergency lighting flickered on, Dr. Harrison was gone. Elena was unconscious on the floor, and Ethan was staring at her with a mixture of awe and terror. "Maya," he said carefully, "we need to talk." But before she could respond, the sound of breaking glass echoed through the hospital, followed by roars and howls that definitely didn't belong to anything human. The council had arrived, and they were coming for her. If this intense chapter moved you, tell me from which corner of the world you're following Maya's story. The emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across room 314 as Maya knelt beside Eleanor's unconscious form, her hands shaking as she checked for a pulse. The older woman was breathing, but her skin was cold to the touch, and Maya could see scorch marks on the floor where her power had erupted outward like a shockwave. "Is she?" Maya whispered, looking up at Ethan with eyes wide with horror at what she'd done. "She'll live," Ethan said grimly, but his attention was focused on the sounds echoing through the hospital corridors, footsteps that were too heavy, voices that carried inhuman undertones, and the unmistakable scratch of claws on linoleum. "But we need to move, now." Maya shook her head, her gaze returning to Susan's peaceful face in the hospital bed. "I can't leave her. What if they hurt her to get to me?" "They won't," Ethan said with certainty that surprised her. "Harming humans draws too much attention from government agencies that even the council prefers to avoid. But you staying here puts her in more danger than leaving would." Before Maya could respond, the lights in the hallway began flickering back to life, not the emergency lighting, but the full fluorescent brightness that meant someone with significant power was restoring the hospital's electrical systems. "Too late," Ethan muttered, moving to position himself between Maya and the door. The footsteps in the corridor stopped directly outside room 314. Maya held her breath, feeling power radiating through the wall's multiple sources, each one stronger than anything she'd encountered tonight. "Maya Chun," a voice called from the hallway. It was female, melodious, and carried absolute authority. "We know you're in there, child. Please, come out so we can talk. No one needs to be harmed tonight." Maya looked at Ethan, who was trembling with barely contained rage. "Who is that?" "High Counselor Celine," Ethan replied through gritted teeth. "The closest thing our world has to a queen. And she's here for me? A hybrid awakening with your level of power would draw her attention from across the globe," Ethan confirmed. "The question is, what she plans to do about it." The voice came again, patient but with an underlying steel that made Maya's newly awakened instincts scream warnings. "Maya dear, your power surge has been felt by every supernatural community from Alaska to Mexico. Hiding is no longer an option." Maya closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her. Stay and potentially put Susan in danger. Run and confirm that she was everything these people claimed she was. Fight and risk becoming the very monster they all seem to expect. What happens if I go out there? She asked Ethan. I don't know, he admitted. The council operates by their own rules. They could decide you're too dangerous to live. They could try to bind your power. They could demand you join them. His jaw tightened. Or they could try to take you away from me. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered Maya, but instead she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. In the space of a few hours, this strange, dangerous boy had become her anchor in a world that seemed determined to define her by her bloodline, rather than her choices. Maya, the voice called again, and this time Maya could hear others moving in the hallway, several someones, all radiating the kind of power that made the air itself feel thick and oppressive. Maya made her decision. She stood up, smoothed down her rumpled clothes, and walked toward the door. Behind her, she heard Ethan let out a soft curse, but he didn't try to stop her. Instead, he fell into step beside her, and Maya felt a rush of gratitude for his silent support. The hallway outside room 314 had been transformed. Where before it had been empty and sterile, now it hummed with supernatural presence. 7 figures stood waiting, each one radiating power in a different way. At their center was a woman who appeared to be in her 30s, with platinum blonde hair that seemed to move with its own wind and violet eyes that held depths Maya couldn't fathom. She wore a simple black dress, but something about her presence made the hospital corridor feel like a throne room. I, Counselor Celine, Ethan said formally, inclining his head in what Maya recognized as barely respectful acknowledgement. Young Alpha, Celine replied with a slight smile. Still as diplomatic as your father, I see. Maya's attention was drawn to the other figures flanking Celine. To her left stood a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a Renaissance painting pale. Beautiful, with dark hair and eyes that held the weight of centuries. His scent reached her even from several feet away, and Maya's instincts immediately identified him as a vampire. To Celine's right was a woman with silver hair and golden eyes, who moved with the fluid grace Maya had come to associate with shapeshifters. Behind them stood 4 others, another vampire, 2 more werewolves, and someone whose nature Maya couldn't quite identify, but who made her skin crawl with undefined dread. Maya-chan, Celine said, turning her full attention to her. Or should I say, Maya Blackthorn's Shadow King. You've certainly made an impression tonight. I didn't mean to, Maya replied, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. I didn't even know I had power until a few hours ago. And yet, you've already managed to knock out a centuries-old pack matriarch and temporarily disable an entire hospital. The Renaissance vampire observed with what might have been amusement. Impressive for someone with no training. Dangerous, corrected the silver-haired woman. Uncontrolled power of that magnitude is a threat to the masquerade. The what? Maya asked. The agreement that keeps our world hidden from human awareness, Celine explained patiently. For thousands of years, supernatural beings have maintained careful secrecy. We live among humans, but we do not expose ourselves to them. Your explosion of power tonight was felt by every sensitive human within 50 miles. We've spent the last hour erasing memories and explaining away electronic malfunctions. Maya felt her stomach drop. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Apologies don't repair the damage. The unidentifiable figure spoke for the first time, and Maya felt ice run through her veins at the sound of its voice. The girl is clearly unstable. She should be bound until she can be properly trained. Or eliminated, added one of the werewolves. Hybrid bloodlines have historically proven impossible to control. Maya felt Ethan tense beside her, his body coiling like a spring ready to snap. But before he could respond, Maya stepped forward. "Stop talking about me like I'm not here," she said, the same words she'd used with Dr. Harrison, but with more force behind them. "I am standing right in front of you. If you have questions, ask me. If you have concerns, tell me. But stop acting like I'm some kind of weapon that needs to be managed." The temperature in the hallway seems to drop several degrees. Celine's violet eyes narrowed slightly, and Maya realized she might have just made a serious mistake. "You're absolutely right," Selene said after a moment, and Maya was surprised to hear what sounded like genuine approval in her voice. "Forgive us. We're so accustomed to dealing with supernatural politics that we sometimes forget basic courtesy." She took a step closer, and Maya had to resist the urge to back away from the sheer presence the woman radiated. "Maya, you are indeed a hybrid of two of the most powerful bloodlines in our world. Your very existence represents a shift in the balance of power that has remained stable for centuries. Tonight's awakening has announced to every supernatural community that something new has entered the world, something that could either save us all or destroy us." "How?" Maya asked. "I don't understand what makes me so special. The Blackthorn line has always been able to amplify and focus supernatural energy," the Renaissance vampire explained. "They were advisors, healers, and battle mages to the great pacts for generations. The Shadow Kings, on the other hand, were rulers, beings of such power that they could command any supernatural creature. The last Shadow King died over 200 years ago," Celine continued. "His bloodline was thought to be extinct, but clearly a descendant survived and found his way to Eleanor Blackthorn." Maya's head was spinning with all the new information. "So what does that make me?" "Theoretically." Celine's smile was enigmatic. "Someone who could unite every supernatural faction under one banner, or someone who could tear them all apart." The unidentifiable figure moved closer, and Maya finally got a clear look at its face. What she saw made her blood freeze. Features that were human, but somehow wrong, as if someone had tried to recreate humanity from a half-remembered description. "The girl represents chaos," it said in that voice like grinding stone. "She must be contained." "Or," Ethan said, speaking for the first time since the introduction, "she could be trained, guided, allowed to choose her own path, instead of having one forced on her by you." The silver-haired werewolf laughed. "You're barely more than a child yourself, Alpha. What makes you think you can control a hybrid of this magnitude?" "I don't want to control her," Ethan replied firmly. "I want to protect her. There's a difference." Maya felt something warm bloom in her chest at his words, but before she could respond, Celine raised a hand for silence. "Enough," she said, and her voice carried such authority that even Maya felt compelled to listen. "There is a way to resolve this that serves everyone's interests." She turned to Maya with an expression that was both kind and absolutely implacable. "Maya Blackthorn, Shadow King, I formally invite you to attend the Convergence Council gathering in 3 days' time. You will be presented to the assembled leaders of every major supernatural faction, and we will determine together how best to integrate you into our community." Maya felt trap closing around her, but she also sensed that this wasn't really an invitation. It was a command wrapped in polite language. "And if I refuse?" she asked. Celine's smile never wavered, but something dangerous flickered in her violet eyes. "I don't think you will. After all, your adoptive mother's continued safety depends on our goodwill, doesn't it?" Maya's power flared at the threat, causing the lights to flicker again, but this time she managed to contain it before it could do real damage. The effort left her feeling drained, and she swayed slightly on her feet. "You have until dawn to decide," Celine said, stepping back. "We'll be waiting." As the council members filed past them toward the elevators, Maya realized that her choice had already been made for her. The only question now was whether she could survive what came next. What happens next will test everything Maya believes about herself. And if you're feeling as anxious as I am about her fate, tap that subscribe button now. It's free, and you'll be with me for every twist in this incredible journey. Dawn painted the Montana sky in shades of amber and rose as Maya stood at the window of the Silver Moon pack house, watching the sun rise over the mountains that had defined her entire world until 12 hours ago. Everything looked the same: the pine forests, the winding roads, the distant peaks touched with early snow, but Maya felt like she was seeing it all through different eyes. Behind her, the pack house buzzed with quiet activity. Elena had regained consciousness an hour after the council's departure, and since then, a steady stream of pack members had been arriving to discuss what Celine's ultimatum meant for all of them. Maya had met 7 of Ethan's pack so far, and each introduction had been a lesson in supernatural politics she'd never wanted to learn. There was Marcus, not the scarred wolf who'd hunted her, but Ethan's younger brother with kind eyes and an easy smile. Sarah, a fierce woman in her 20s who served as the pack's scout. David and Jennifer, mates who functioned as the pack's healers. Thomas, an older man whose graying beard couldn't hide the sharp intelligence in his gaze as he assessed Maya like a puzzle to be solved. And then there was Luna, a girl about Maya's age with midnight black hair and startling green eyes who had taken one look at Maya and declared her woefully unprepared for what's coming. "She's not wrong," Elena said softly, joining Maya at the window. The older woman moved carefully, still recovering from Maya's accidental power surge, but her voice carried the same authority Maya had noticed the night before. "About what, specifically?" Maya asked. "Because from where I'm standing, I seem to be unprepared for everything." Elena's laugh held no humor. "The Convergence Gathering isn't just a meeting, Maya. It's a trial. Every few decades, when tensions between supernatural factions reach a breaking point, the Council convenes to decide how to maintain the balance of power." Maya turned away from the window to face Elena fully. In the morning light, she could see the family resemblance to Ethan even more clearly, the same aristocratic features, the same aura of contained strength. But there was something else in Elena's expression, something that made Maya's newly awakened instincts prickle with unease. "What kind of trial?" "The kind where your life hangs in the balance," Luna said, appearing in the doorway with a steaming mug of coffee that smelled like heaven to Maya's exhausted senses. The last hybrid to face the Council was executed for being too dangerous to the natural order. "Luna," Elena warned, but the younger girl shrugged. "She deserves to know what she's walking into. Sugarcoating it won't help anyone." Maya accepted the coffee gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic as she tried to process this new information. "When was this? The last hybrid?" 1847, Elena replied reluctantly. "His name was Demon Cross, half vampire, half Fae. When his powers manifested, he accidentally killed 17 humans in a single night." "Accidentally?" "Fae magic and vampire bloodlust don't mix well," Luna explained, settling cross-legged on the floor beside Maya's chair. "The combination drove him insane. The Council decided he was too unstable to live." Maya felt cold despite the coffee's warmth. "And they think I might be the same." "Some of them do," Elena confirmed. "But others see an opportunity. A hybrid with your bloodline could tip the balance of power in any faction's favor. Lucky me, Maya muttered. Footsteps on the stairs announced Ethan's arrival. He looked like he hadn't slept. His dark hair was disheveled, his clothes rumpled, and there were shadows under his eyes that spoke of hours spent planning for an uncertain future. The council's representatives have established a perimeter around the town, he announced without preamble. No one gets in or out without their permission. Prison, Maya said flatly. Protection, Elena corrected, but even she didn't sound convinced. They're ensuring no other factions can reach you before the gathering, or ensuring I can't run, Maya replied. Ethan moved to stand beside her chair, and Maya felt some of her tension ease at his proximity. The mate bond Elena had mentioned was becoming stronger. She could sense his emotions like whispers at the edge of her consciousness, feel his determination to protect her, even when she wasn't sure she wanted protection. There is another option, he said quietly. Elena's head snapped up. Ethan, no. What option? Maya asked, looking between them. We could leave, Ethan said, ignoring his mother's warning glare. Tonight, before the gathering. I know routes through the mountains that even the council scouts wouldn't find. We could disappear. And go where? Luna asked practically. She's a hybrid, Ethan. Her power signature is unique. There's nowhere on Earth she could hide for long. Australia, Ethan replied immediately. The Aboriginal shamans have protection wards that even the council respects. Or the Amazon. There are jaguar clans there who've been independent for centuries. Maya felt a flutter of hope at the possibility of escape, but it was quickly dampened by reality. What about Susan, my adoptive mother? The council won't hurt her, Elena said firmly. Harming humans brings too much unwanted attention. But they'll use her as leverage to bring me back, Maya finished, won't they? The silence that greeted her question was answer enough. Maya set down her coffee and stood, needing to move as frustration and fear warred in her chest. So my choices are: face a trial that might end with my execution, or run away and spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder while Susan pays the price for my cowardice. There's a third option, a new voice said from the doorway. Maya turned to see Marcus Ethan's brother, not the scarred wolf leaning against the door frame with an expression she couldn't quite read. Which is? Ethan asked, though his tone suggested he already knew and didn't like the answer. She could embrace what she is, Marcus said simply. Stop thinking like a human and start thinking like a supernatural. Play their game, but play it to win. Elena made a sound of disgust. She's 17 years old, Marcus. She learned about our world 12 hours ago. So, age doesn't matter in supernatural politics, Marcus replied. Power does, and she has more power than anyone in that council chamber. Untrained power, Luna pointed out. She could barely control a light show last night. Then we train her, Marcus said, turning his attention fully to Mile. 3 days isn't much, but it's something. We teach her the basics of power control, give her a crash course in supernatural politics, and send her in prepared to fight for her freedom. Maya felt something stir in her chest. Not power this time, but determination. You think I could actually win? I think you're underestimating yourself, Marcus replied. The council is afraid of you, Maya. They wouldn't be calling a convergence gathering if they thought you were weak. Being powerful and being smart are two different things, Elena warned. One wrong word in that chamber could start a war, and one right word could end several, Marcus countered. Maya, you're not just a hybrid. You're the bridge between two bloodlines that have been enemies for centuries. If you can master your power, if you can learn to navigate their politics, you could reshape the entire supernatural world. Maya looked around the room at these people who would become her allies in the space of a single night. Elena, worried and protective. Luna, blunt but loyal. Marcus, ambitious but genuine in his belief in her potential. And Ethan, whose feelings for her were complicated by destiny and desire, but anchored by something that felt remarkably like love. What would the training involve? She asked. Power control first, Elena said, clearly resigned to the plan despite her reservations. You need to learn to channel your abilities without destroying everything around you. Combat training, Luna added. If words fail at the gathering, you'll need to be able to defend yourself. Politics, Marcus continued. Understanding the factions, their histories, their weaknesses. Knowing who your potential allies are and who will try to use you. And strategy, Ethan finished. Learning to think 3 moves ahead, to turn their own rules against them. Maya felt the weight of it all settling on her shoulders, the expectations, the danger, the responsibility for choices that could affect the entire supernatural world. Part of her wanted to curl up in a corner and pretend none of this was happening. But a larger part, the part that had been invisible and powerless for 17 years, was ready to fight. Okay, she said, and was surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Let's do it. Elena closed her eyes as if in pain. Maya, you don't understand what you're agreeing to. The council doesn't just judge power, they judge character, intentions, the potential for future threats. One mistake could get me killed, Maya finished. I understand. But running away could get me killed too, and it would definitely get other people hurt. At least this way, I'm fighting for something instead of just surviving. Luna grinned, showing teeth that were slightly too sharp. I like her. The feeling's mutual, Maya replied, then turned to Ethan. You're being awfully quiet. What do you think? Ethan was studying her face with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. I think, he said slowly, that the council has no idea what they're dealing with. And I think they're about to find out. Maya felt a smile tug at her lips, the first genuine smile she'd felt since this all began. Then let's make sure I'm ready to show them. As the pack began discussing training schedules and political strategies, Maya caught her reflection in the window glass. For 17 years she'd been the invisible girl, the one nobody noticed or remembered. But the face looking back at her now belonged to someone else entirely. Someone who was done hiding, done being powerless, done letting other people decide her fate. In 3 days, she would face the Convergence Council and learn whether she was strong enough to survive in this new world. She intended to do more than just survive. The Convergence gathering was held in an abandoned mansion deep in the Glacier National Park, a place where human hikers never ventured and satellite imagery mysteriously failed to capture clear details. As Maya stepped out of the SUV that had transported her from the pack house, she felt the weight of centuries pressing down on her like a physical force. The mansion itself seemed to defy architectural logic, Gothic spires twisted into impossible spirals, windows that reflected not the Montana sky, but something darker and older, and doors that appeared to lead to rooms that couldn't possibly fit within the building's exterior dimensions. Maya's newly awakened senses told her that this place existed partially outside normal reality, anchored by power so ancient it made her teeth ache. Remember, Elena murmured as they approached the main entrance, speak only when spoken to, never turn your back on a council member, and whatever you do, don't let them see fear. Maya nodded, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. 3 days of intensive training had taught her to control her power enough that she wasn't accidentally destroying electronics, but she still felt like a child playing with forces beyond her comprehension. Luna walked on her other side, having insisted on attending as Maya's cultural liaison, a role that apparently gave her permission to offer sarcastic commentary on supernatural politics. "And if anyone asks about your intentions," Luna added quietly, "remember what we practiced. You're not here to submit or to conquer. You're here to understand your place in the world." The massive front doors opened before they could knock, revealing High Counselor Selene in robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. Her violet eyes fixed on Maya, with an intensity that made her want to look away, but she forced herself to maintain eye contact. "Maya Blackthorn's Shadow King," Selene said formally. "Welcome to the Convergence." "Thank you for having me," Maya replied, using the diplomatic tone Elena had drilled into her over the past 3 days. Selena's smile was enigmatic. "We shall see if you feel the same way when this is over." The interior of the mansion was even more disorienting than the exterior. Corridors stretched in directions that shouldn't exist. Staircases climbed towards ceilings that seemed infinitely high. And everywhere Maya looked, she caught glimpses of figures that vanished when she tried to focus on them. "The mansion exists in folded space," Luna explained, noticing Maya's confusion. "The council uses it for gatherings that require privacy." They were led through a maze of impossible hallways, until they reached a set of doors that towered at least 20 feet high, carved with symbols that hurt Maya's eyes to look at directly. Beyond them, she could hear the murmur of many voices speaking in languages both familiar and utterly alien. "The assembly is waiting," Selene announced. "Maya, you will enter alone. Your companions may observe from the gallery." Maya felt Ethan tense beside her. Over the past 3 days, their matey bond had grown stronger, and she could feel his desire to protect her warring with his understanding that this was something she had to face on her own. "I'll be fine," she told him, hoping her voice carried more confidence than she felt. Ethan caught her hand, squeezing gently. "Remember who you are," he said quietly. "Not who they want you to be, but who you choose to be." The massive doors swung open, and Maya stepped into the assembly chamber. The room beyond defied every expectation she'd formed. It was vast, easily the size of a football stadium, with a domed ceiling that showed not the mansion's roof, but a swirling view of galaxies and stars. Arranged in concentric circles were hundreds of seats, each occupied by a figure that radiated supernatural power. Maya recognized some of these supernatural types from her crash course in politics. Werewolves with their predatory grace and golden eyes. Vampires with their ageless beauty and predatory stillness. Fey creatures whose appearances shifted like living dreams. But there were others she couldn't identify, beings that seemed to be made of shadow and starlight. Creatures whose forms suggested they'd never been entirely human. Entities that existed as much in flesh. At the center of the chamber was a raised platform with a single chair. It took Maya a moment to realize it was meant for her. Mayor of the Blackthorn and Shadow King bloodlines. Selene's voice echoed through the chamber with supernatural amplification. "You stand before the Convergence Council to be judged and catalogued, according to your nature and potential." Maya walked toward the central platform, acutely aware that hundreds of inhuman eyes were tracking her every movement. She could feel their power pressing against her like a tide, testing her defenses, probing for weaknesses. When she reached the chair, she didn't sit. Instead, she stood beside it and faced the assembled council with her chin raised and her shoulders squared. "I understand you wish to evaluate me," she said, and was relieved when her voice carried clearly through the vast space. "But I have questions of my own." A ripple of surprise ran through the assembly. Apparently, most people brought before the council didn't make demands. "Questions?" Selene asked, and Maya caught a note of what might have been amusement in her voice. 3 days ago, I didn't know any of you existed, Maya continued. I was just a girl trying to graduate high school and figure out what to do with her life. Now I'm told I'm some kind of catalyst for change in your world. But no one has bothered to explain what kind of change you're expecting, or why it matters to me. An elderly vampire in the front row leaned forward, his ancient eyes glittering with interest. You speak as if you have a choice in the matter, child. Don't I? Maya asked, turning to face him directly. Because from where I stand, it seems like you're all so focused on what I might do that you've forgotten I'm a person, not a weapon. A person with the power to reshape the supernatural world. A Fey Lord interjected, his voice like wind chimes in a storm. Whether you intend to or not, then help me understand, Maya said, addressing the entire assembly. What is it you're all so afraid of? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maya could feel the weight of their stares, the pressure of their combined attention, but she didn't flinch. It was High Counselor Celine who finally answered, War, child. We fear war. Between who? Everyone, Celine replied simply. For centuries, the supernatural world has maintained a delicate balance. The werewolf packs control territory, but respect vampire courts. The Fae remain in their realms, but trade with human-adjacent clans. Ancient bloodlines maintain their power through tradition and carefully negotiated treaties. Maya was beginning to understand. And my existence threatens that balance. Your bloodline represents the two most powerful lineages in supernatural history, the elderly vampire explained. The Blackthorn ability to amplify and focus power, combined with the Shadow King capacity to command absolute obedience from any supernatural being. In the wrong hands, such abilities could dominate every other faction. And you think I have the wrong hands? Mia asked. We think you're untrained, untested, and potentially unstable, a werewolf alpha called from the upper tiers. The last Shadow King blooded hybrid went insane and had to be destroyed. Maya felt her temper flare, and with it her power. The lights in the chamber flickered, and she saw several council members tense as they felt her energy spike. This was the moment she'd been preparing for, the test Elena had warned her about. They were pushing her, trying to see if she would lose control, if she would prove their fears justified. Instead of fighting the anger, Maya embraced it. But rather than letting it explode outward, as it had at the hospital, she drew it inward, using the techniques Elena had taught her to channel the energy into something more controlled. When she spoke again, her voice carried an undertone of power that made even the ancient vampires shift uncomfortably in their seats. I am not the last hybrid, she said clearly. I am not some failed experiment from your history books. I am Maya Churn, and I choose who I become. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. Maya could feel her power spreading outward, not destructively, but assertively, a declaration of presence that touched every supernatural being in the room. You want to know what kind of change I represent? Maya continued, looking around the assembly with new confidence. I represent the end of your old fears. I'm not here to dominate anyone or start wars. I'm here to offer you something you've never had before, which is, Celine asked, and Maya heard genuine curiosity in her voice. Choice, Maya replied simply. For too long, your world has been governed by bloodlines and territories and ancient grudges. You've been so busy maintaining the balance of power that you've forgotten power is supposed to serve a purpose. She gestured to the assembled council. Look around you. Hundreds of the most powerful beings on Earth, gathered in secret, afraid of what one 17-year-old girl might do. Don't you think it's time for something better? The silence that followed was deafening. Maya could feel the weight of their consideration, the ripple of her words spreading through the chamber like stones cast in still water. Finally, High Counselor Selene stood. "Maya Blackthorn Shadow King," she said formally, "the council finds you... Interesting." Maya blinked. Interesting? Not a threat to be eliminated. Not a weapon to be controlled. But a catalyst for change. As we suspected, Selene's smile was genuine now, without the political calculation Maya had seen before. The question is, are you prepared for the responsibility that comes with such a designation? Maya thought about Susan, still recovering in the hospital, about Ethan and Deepak, who had risked everything to protect her, about the invisible girl she'd been just 3 days ago, and the woman she was choosing to become. "I'm prepared to try," she said. And in that moment, feeling the assembled power of the supernatural world focused on her, Maya Chun truly became Maya Blackthorn Shadow King, not because of her bloodline, but because of her choice to embrace a destiny she would write for herself. The Convergence Council rose as one, and Maya realized that her real journey was just beginning. If Maya's transformation moved you as much as it moved me, I'd love to know. Tell me from which city or country you're witnessing this incredible moment with us. And if you want to keep following stories that will surprise and inspire you, like this one did, tap that subscribe button now. It's free, and you'll be with me for every incredible journey we take together.